Thank you. You may all sit down.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenny, and I'm here today with Jenny. Today will be your MCs. For today's proceedings, we'll be speaking in English and Vietnamese. This year is quite special, as it is the second year that our youngest second generation from the Dual Identity Leadership Program has stepped up to organise the ceremony.
Kenny và Kenny xin kính chào quý quan khách cùng toàn thể đồng bào. Hôm nay chúng tôi là người hướng dẫn chương trình buổi lễ tưởng niệm ngày 30 tháng 4. Đặc biệt là buổi lễ tưởng niệm năm nay do các bạn trẻ thuộc thế hệ thứ hai từ khóa lãnh đạo hai nguồn gốc đứng ra tổ chức. Khóa lãnh đạo hai nguồn gốc là một chương trình đã bắt đầu vào năm 2014 do cộng đồng người Việt tự do Victoria sáng lập. Kể từ đó đã phát triển rất nhiều, hiện bao gồm hơn 150 cựu sinh viên.
Joining us here today, I'd like to start by acknowledging our guests of honour, those who have continued to support our community. Grant Coltman Smith, Vietnam Veterans Education Team, Robert Scott, Minister of Veterans, Harriet Singh, Greens candidate, Mr. Nguyễn Khắc Thi Việt from Việt Kích Dù, Lê Thành Nhân, đội hậu duệ, Trần Khánh Dư, Phật giáo Hòa Hảo, Bé Hà, Sigma President, Thiên Thư, Viễn sứ Radio, Hoàng Phương, Dân xá, Trần Bá Nguyệt, Cưu Quân Nhân, Nguyễn Văn Vinh Tân, Đại Việt, and Janet Rice, Senator for Victoria.
Special acknowledgement to all the veteran allies and families who are present with us today. We acknowledge the faith leaders from the Vietnamese community Hoa Hao, evangelists, Cao Dai, Buddhists and Catholics. We also acknowledge the presence of many community leaders and notable guests. Your presence is precious and we are grateful. Finally, we acknowledge the hosts, the Vietnamese community in Australia Victoria chapter. Ms. Viet Nguyen, Mr. Pham Nguyen, and members of the VCAV committees, particularly thanking the Dual Identity Leadership Program alumni community who has led the organisation of this special event. And a final thank you for everyone in attendance. We appreciate you giving your time to be here tonight. Today is a day of remembrance, a day to remember the solemn loss of a home and loved ones, but also to celebrate the journey of discovering a new one. We'd like to welcome you all here to mark the 44th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, a date that for many still remains a fresh memory in their minds and for others a part of their history and culture. We're also here to pay tribute to all those who fought to protect freedom and all those who were lost trying to find it.
Cộng đồng xin ghi nhận và cảm ơn các vị khách danh dự đang có mặt. Đó là những người luôn hỗ trợ cho cộng đồng. Và cũng xin cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã bỏ thời giờ quý báu để tham dự buổi hôm nay. Sự hiện diện của quý vị là một niềm vinh dự lớn lao cho cộng đồng. Đây là buổi lễ tưởng niệm cho ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 1975, là ngày để tưởng nhớ về quê hương và những người thân, nhưng cũng là ngày để tán dương cuộc hành trình đi tìm tự do một quê hương thứ hai. Chúng tôi xin chào đón tất cả quý quan khách và đồng bào đã đến dự buổi lễ tưởng niệm này để đánh dấu 44 năm ngày mất nước. Một ngày mà đối với rất nhiều người, những sự kiện xảy ra vẫn còn thật mới mẻ và hằn sâu trong tâm trí của họ. Và đối với một số người khác, thì ngày ấy đã trở thành một phần của lịch sử và văn hóa của chính họ. Chúng ta cũng xin bày tỏ lòng tôn kính và vinh danh những người đã chiến đấu để bảo vệ tự do của miền Nam Việt Nam và những người đã bỏ mình trên biển cả hay trong rừng sâu trên đường đi tìm tự do.
I would like to now invite the President of the VSA Viv Nguyen to share a few words.
Xin mời cô Phượng Vĩ, Chủ tịch Cộng đồng Người Việt Tự do Úc Châu, tiểu bang Victoria lên chia sẻ đôi lời về buổi lễ.
First, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathering here tonight and pay my respects to their elders past and present. To the President of the Vietnamese Community in Australia, Mr. Bon Nguyen, to our Minister for Veterans Affairs, the Honourable Robin Scott, thank you for coming here tonight. To all of our veterans, Vietnamese veterans, our allies and families, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 44th anniversary of the Fall of Saigon. The Vietnam War is undoubtedly one of the most controversial wars in Australia's history. It was controversial because it was considered America's war, and a war based on philosophical value of anti-communism. It was considered a civil war, and the fall of Saigon was a unification of that country. And those involved in that, other than the Vietnamese, it was not just. In Australia, over 60,000 Australians, including ground troops, Air Force and Navy personnel served in Vietnam. 521 died as a result of the war, and over 3,000 were wounded. The war was the cause of one of the greatest social and political stench in Australia's history. For the South Vietnamese, they lost their comrades, their loved ones, and most painful of all, they lost their country. How is it a unification of a country where millions were killed, sent to the re-education camps or to new economic zones? How is it a reunification when millions were willing to die at sea or in jungles fleeing their own country? Everybody has an opinion about this war, and their view is always right. The world and the scholars, the think tanks, the elite, the eyewitness, and the mass population of the world have seen many films, documentaries, books, biographies, and the like of the Vietnam War. Myriads of them, all from the views of the Americans, the Australians, and indeed the North Vietnamese Communist Party itself, the journalists, the photographers, and the servicemen or women, but not from the South Vietnamese. The world and her scholars, the think tanks, the elite, the mass population have not heard from the South Vietnamese and have not heard their South Vietnamese story. It is excruciatingly painful, the pain of losing their comrades in the battlefields, suffering in the re-education camps, and again, the pain of escaping their beloved country. It is very difficult to tell your story, but it needs to be told. I cannot profess to understand the pain you would feel from having to recount those stories. But we've never had to flee our own country in times of foreign domination or invasion for over 4,000 years. There are no precedents to follow or frame of reference to consider. Time is the best and the most effective panacea of all. It makes us forget, it makes us complacent, and it makes us apathetic. And our care becomes a zero factor. I hope events like tonight remind us all that we still have a job to do. and that is to recorrect history, to restore the honor of those servicemen and women, so that their death was not in vain, and to continue to advocate for a truly democratic Vietnam. Kính thưa quý vị, 44 năm trôi qua, chúng ta và thế giới đã nghe, đọc và coi qua biết bao nhiêu sách vở, phim ảnh về cuộc chiến Việt Nam, được kể từ cái nhìn của người Mỹ, người Úc và đương nhiên của chính quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam. Thế giới nhìn chiến tranh là một cuộc nội chiến và ngày 30 tháng 4 là ngày giải phóng, thống nhất đất nước. Làm sao có thể cho là thống nhất đất nước khi hàng ngàn quân dân cán chính phải đi vào trại tập trung, bị giết chết và hàng ngàn người phải bỏ quê hương liều mình chết để tìm hai chữ tự do. Thế giới có quá nhiều bận rộn và không vì quyền lợi của chúng ta để viết lại trang sử vào cuộc chiến oai hùng cho đúng đắn hay trung thực. Và đương nhiên, nhà cầm quyền là Cộng sản Việt Nam sẽ không bao giờ làm việc đó. Trách nhiệm đó là bổn phận của chúng ta, những người may mắn được bảo vệ vì những hy sinh của những người quân nhân, quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và đồng minh, những người đã được may mắn đến bên bờ tự do sau những ngày tháng kinh hoàng lênh đênh trên biển cả hay nơi rừng sâu. Hơn 4.000 năm văn hiến, người Việt chưa bao giờ phải bỏ nước ra đi. Chúng ta không có tiền lệ nào để theo hay những kinh nghiệm của những người đi trước để hướng dẫn. Và với thời gian, tự nhiên sẽ quên, cảm thấy tự mãn và vô tâm thờ ơ. Ban chấp hành chúng tôi cảm ơn các bạn trẻ đã cố gắng tổ chức buổi lễ tưởng niệm Ngày Quốc hận hôm nay. Việc làm của các bạn và sự hiện diện của quý vị cho biết chúng ta chưa và sẽ không quên, chúng ta không tự mãn và sẽ không bao giờ, chúng ta không vô tâm thờ ơ và cũng sẽ không bao giờ. Trong cuộc chiến, trong công cuộc vận động để viết lại trang sử hào hùng một cách đúng đắn và trung thực, trả lại danh dự cho những người đã nằm xuống vì hai chữ tự do mà chúng ta đang và sẽ tiếp tục và sẽ không ngừng cho đến khi quê hương Việt Nam được một sự tự do, an bình thật sự. Xin chân thành cảm ơn.
Thank you, Viv, for sharing that heartfelt speech. We'd now like to welcome the Minister for Veterans and Assistant Treasurer, Robin Scott, to share a few words with us.
Thank you kindly. Let me to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders, both past, present and future. Viv Nguyen, President of the Vietnamese Community Council in Australia Victorian Chapter, Vietnamese Community Australia Victorian Chapter Executive Team, Dual Identity Leadership Program Advisory Board and Alumni Committee. I think Bernie Finn may be joining us tonight. Parliament's sitting and because of other commitments I can't stay too long, so I apologise in advance. Mr Grant, Coltman Smith, OAM, Victorian Veterans Association of Australia. Thank you for inviting me to join you this evening to commemorate the anniversary of the fall of Saigon. On a personal note, my father actually served in the Vietnam War, so I have a personal connection to tonight's events. Today we thank those who served in the Vietnam War, acknowledge their service and significant efforts of the veterans of the South Vietnamese forces who served their country with honour. We also remember that many Australian troops also served and returned home after the war. South Vietnamese troops, of course, faced a very different reality subsequent to the fall of Saigon. We honour the men and women of the former Republic of Vietnam who died, those who were injured and those who survived the fall of Saigon and made their journey as refugees to Australia. We acknowledge their sacrifice, their pain and suffering in losing their very country. But we also look to their resilience and hard work and determination that have helped create a vibrant and diverse society here in Australia. We recognise the traumatic impact of the war in Vietnam on Vietnamese Australians here in Victoria. And we know that the impact of this war can be intergenerational. I note that this event has been organised by young members of the Vietnamese community in the Dual Identity Leadership Program, and I thank those participants for that work. This program is an excellent initiative which encourages participants to embrace their dual Vietnamese Australian identity and enhance their leadership. As we commemorate Anzac Day, and did so on the 25th of April, and honour and remember the historic struggle of Australian troops, including those in Vietnam, we also remembered the cause that Australian soldiers were protecting, the people themselves of South Vietnam. Thank you for honouring and for the honour and respect you pay to Australians and Vietnam veterans. I know it means a great deal that their efforts in fighting alongside South Vietnamese are remembered with gratitude by the people they hope to help and their descendants. Of course, there is a story of hope coming out of these tragic events here in Australia. Victoria and other places in Australia opened their arms to the Vietnamese community as a result of the conflict in their homeland. Today we recognise the journey of refugees who left Vietnam and also the contribution that they've made to our own community here. I acknowledge those Vietnamese Australians who came to Victoria in those early years and their determination to contribute to the Australian way of life and build lives for themselves and their families here. These Vietnamese Australians worked hard to ensure the strong, in fact very proud and strong Vietnamese culture endured through the changes and disruptions they faced, and wonderfully shared that culture with the broader Australian community. Victoria's Vietnamese community is now an integral part of our society and it has contributed a great deal to our culture, economy and community state and country. Victoria is now home to over 80,000 people who identify as having Vietnamese ancestry, and for over 40 years, Vietnamese Victorians have played a significant part in our community. The Vietnamese community in Australia Victoria chapter and the Dual Identity Leadership Program play an important role in ensuring we remember the sacrifice of those who fought in the Vietnam War, those who lost their lives and homes in the fall of Saigon, and those that made the journey to Australia to make new homes here in Victoria. Let us remember those who were lost. Let us remember the suffering of those who survived. And let us renew our dedication to ensuring their memory is not in vain. Thank you again for inviting me here tonight.
Robin's testimony is evidence of how far our community has come since the fall of Saigon. We'll now like to welcome the Senator for Victoria, Jeanette Rice, to share a few words with us.
Xin mời Janet Rice, Senator Victoria.
Thank you. I'm very humbled and privileged to be here with you today. I acknowledge the members of the Vietnamese Community Association, Bon Nguyen, Vivian Nguyen, Lawrence, the members of the Dual Identity Leadership Program. Acknowledge Robin Scott, the Minister for Veterans Affairs, Grant Colton-Smith from the Vietnamese Veterans Association, Harakat Singh, my Greens colleague, who's the Greens candidate for Gorton, who is with us here tonight. I do want to start by acknowledging that we're here today on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of this land, and to acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as acknowledging all of the other elders in this room, and to acknowledge that this still is Aboriginal land. It always was and it always will be, and that we've got a long way to go before we tell the truth about what happened when we had hostile forces come in and take over this land. And so we need to have treaties and justice for our First Nations brothers and sisters. And I think it's very moving to think about our First Nations brothers and sisters and how we haven't acknowledged that truth here when thinking about what was lost in South Vietnam and what we are here to commemorate tonight, and what happens when hostile forces come in and overturn the life and overturn, a peaceful country. So it's, for us, I think, I'm very honoured to be here with you because I know that the Vietnamese War, it resonates so much throughout Australia, and certainly the sacrifice that so many people made, Australian soldiers, the Vietnamese people, the number of Vietnamese people who were lost, and the suffering and the tragedies, so much that people had to flee their homeland and travel all around the world in such dangerous circumstances, and so many of you that ended up here in Australia. and have enriched our country. So that real dynamic of that loss, but the richness that you have brought to Australia in the Vietnamese community here as part of our Australia. And I think about the fact that you were welcomed here and the leadership of the Liberal Prime Minister, Malcolm Fraser, in welcoming Vietnamese refugees here to build their lives in Australia. And I only wish that we could have that leadership again in this country for welcoming refugees here. And in particular, we know that in communist Vietnam now, there are awful human rights abuses. There are people who are working hard for democracy, who are being jailed, who are being tortured. And there are people that have decided they really can't, they want to flee Vietnam still, who aren't being accepted here in Australia. So I call upon all political parties in Australia to join me as a Green to say we need to be welcoming more refugees and we need to be speaking up more to try and get justice for peoples in Vietnam and be working for democracy in Vietnam. Australia could be doing more about that, and Australia certainly in the meantime could be accepting more refugees. And also family reunions, because we know that for people who have got family in Vietnam that they would like to have come here and join them, you will be on a waiting list that is about 30 years long, and that's just unacceptable. But we need to be welcoming your families, people that you would like to have you join you here in a timely manner, and we can do that. We are a rich, welcoming, diverse, multicultural society, and we can be welcoming more people here. So look, I just want to finish by again thanking you for inviting me. Thank you in particular, the Dual Identity Leadership Program, for the initiative of having these commemorations, the very moving thing to be having here in Melbourne, and for inviting us to be part of it, to join in remembering what was lost, but also remembering, looking forward and thinking of the quest that we can be on together for our having a positive, vibrant society here and working for democracy and justice in Vietnam today. Thank you.
We'll now like to present a video that pays tribute to the fall of Saigon.
Sau đây xin quý vị xem video để tưởng nhớ đến ngày 30 tháng 4.
President Nixon resigned his office as a result of what became known as Watergate. 3 months after his resignation came the November congressional elections, and the Democrats won a landslide victory for the new Congress. And many of the members used their new majority to defund the military aid that the United States had promised, peace for people. The North Vietnamese leaders admitted that they were testing the new president, Joe Ford, and they took one village after another, then cities, then provinces, and our only response was to go back on our word.
outside Saigon.
That was a very powerful video, and I know that it was very painful for a lot of us to watch. But I want to acknowledge and remind the older generations that your pain is now our pain. We're the children, and that we'll always love and support you for all your sacrifices. We'd now like to give a warm welcome to the Vice President, External Vietnam Veterans Association, Sir Chan, to share a few words with us.
May I make it short at the beginning because we don't have much time. Dear Mr. Nguyen, President of Vietnamese Community in Australia. Dear Mr. President of Vietnamese Community in Australia, Victoria Chatter. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege for me to say a few words on behalf of the Vietnamese Veterans Association in Victoria on this very special occasion today. 30th April is the day that marks the fall of Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam. Many books, many films, even many secret documents have been lost so far after that day. Therefore, it is not the time to judge what is wrong and what is right about that war. It is the time to express our thanks and respect to brave soldiers and civilians who have been serving in that specific period of time for freedom and democracy. Among them, many have sacrificed their own lives for the same causes. We are here also today to say thanks to the open arms policy of the Australian people and governments. Thanks to them, we can have the chance to breathe, to trust that air of freedom and peace. Particularly, we can look forward to the present continued fight for freedom against the communism in Vietnam as well. We have the duty to say it clearly, very clearly, to the next generation gathering here today. We do believe that our ancestors and the one who had passed away always be with us forever. Thank you for your attention. May I say a few words in Vietnamese. Kính thưa quý vị, kính thưa quý quan khách, kính thưa quý đồng hương. 30 tháng 4 không phải là ngày chúng ta phân tích đúng hay sai cuộc chiến đã chấm dứt 44 năm trước trên quê hương Việt Nam của chúng ta. Bởi vì cuộc chiến ấy đã bạch hóa trên vô số sách vở và phim ảnh. 30 tháng 4 hôm nay là ngày tưởng nhớ những chiến sĩ Việt Nam và chiến sĩ đồng minh đã chiến đấu anh dũng và kiên cường, cũng như hàng triệu người dân đã bỏ mình để bảo vệ tự do trên quê hương. Cuộc chiến ấy vẫn còn tiếp chiến để chống lại chủ nghĩa cộng sản phi nhân, vẫn còn tồn tại trên quê hương Việt Nam. Đó là điều chúng ta phải nói rõ, nói thật rõ cho những thế hệ đàn em và con cháu chúng ta ngày hôm nay. Xin vong linh các anh hùng tử sĩ và đồng bào phù hộ cho chúng ta. Trân trọng kính chào và chân thành cảm ơn quý vị.
Thank you for sharing. Next, we would like to welcome Mr. Smith, representative of the Vietnam Veterans Association of Australia, Victoria and Branch.
Xin chào đón Mr. Smith, đại diện cho Vietnam Veterans Association Australia, Victoria and Branch.
Thank you. Fellow veterans, parliamentarians, especially the dual identity people who have organised this, and my friends Phong, Viv and Bon, who have worked tirelessly on behalf of your community. I was asked to speak on what it meant to me, the fall of Saigon. On the 30th of April 1975, I was still serving in the army. And my first reaction was, thank God for that, it's over. At the time, I didn't think too much about how it affected South Vietnamese, as I had my own problems. Although I had always had a feeling of disquiet about how and why Australia withdrew its forces in 1972-73. As news of what was happening to the South Vietnamese at the hands of their so-called liberators started to filter through, I began to experience a feeling of shame that the Australian government had deserted the South Vietnamese purely for political expediency. And I was disgusted with the indecent haste with which the Whitlam Labor government fell over itself to recognise the totalitarian communist regime. Even before 1974 they had established an embassy in Hanoi. The government repeated the farce and purely for political expediency they turned their backs on the East Timorese when Indonesia invaded later in 1975, murdering 4 Australian journalists as they did so, which did great damage to our international reputation. When Malcolm Fraser finally opened the doors to the Vietnamese refugees, I must admit that I was sceptical that as a community you would assimilate, become productive citizens. When in the mid-1980s as a policeman I joined the Bao Task Force and met a very young Phong Nguyen, who was the task force interpreter, I discovered that the Vietnamese community in Melbourne, except for the criminal gangs, were honest, hard-working and inclusive people who are extremely grateful to Australia. I once again found myself protecting the Vietnamese people, this time in my country, not yours. I'm disgusted at how the history has been manipulated and the communist version of events has been so readily accepted. It's as if our political and academic elite have either forgotten or purposely ignored the truth. Every time I do a presentation to a school, I mention the fall of Saigon and try and change the prevailing and politically correct opinion that the conflict was either a civil war between 2 different groups in the same country, North and South, or a war between the Vietnamese and the imperialist American invaders and their running dog allies, us. And that our task was to protect the South Vietnamese people from the North's aggression and terror tactics. I remind the children and anyone else who will listen that the fall of Saigon was the result of the invasion of the Republic of Vietnam by North Vietnamese Communist forces who broke their own treaty to do so. I also emphasise the violation of human rights and decency that followed the invasion and is still occurring. I will not allow the history to be perverted by the communist regimes or its apologists in Australia, nor the political correctniks too afraid to offend anyone. Too many Vietnamese, Australian and Americans died and were traumatised fighting to keep South Vietnam a free, democratic and independent nation, for us to allow the true story of Vietnam and its people to be lost. Your country may have been taken from you, but you have not lost your identity. I am an incurable optimist, and there is a positive outcome to the Vietnam disaster. It brought you here. Without it, I would never have met any of you, especially my friend Phong. I thank you for accepting Tina and myself into your community. It's truly an honour. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant and Tina, for being with us here today. Please welcome Jennifer Dow, who is a part of the Dual Identity Leadership Program 2019 cohort, to share her reflection on what today means for her. Jennifer will be speaking in both English and Vietnamese.
Xin quý vị chào đón Jennifer Dow là một phát sinh của khóa lãnh đạo 2 nguồn gốc năm 2019 sẽ lên đây chia sẻ cảm nghĩ.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by saying I'm honoured and humbled to be able to stand here and speak tonight. My name is Jen Padel. I'm a second generation Vietnamese born in Australia. That is one of my identities and one I'm proud of. Before I continue, I want to express my gratitude to the wonderful organisers and to all of you for your presence. The fall of Saigon signifies the memories of fear and despair for the South Vietnamese as they try to escape the conflict. It reminds us of lost lives, shattered hopes, and stolen innocence, and is a period of history that I believe is yet to be fully recovered from. The events that happened on April 30th, 1975 were both disappointing and terrifying. Now I'd like to take some time to share my family's experience during this significant historical event. My family did not escape Vietnam. My grandfather was missing and two of my uncles' vacations were unknown on that day. My mom had found her way to my grandmother and instead of escaping, they decided to stay. My grandmother said that she couldn't leave without her husband and all of her children with her, and that everything would be okay as long as my mom and my grandmother had each other. I think my mom and my grandmother were just used to waiting. My grandmother and mom would be waiting for their fathers and husbands to hopefully return from each battle. And that makes for me my family. Family means that together we can go through anything. I had wondered why my mom never told me about that day, but after I had asked her and she was able to recount her experience, she said that she was afraid to pass on the negativity of the war to me. However, now having shared it with her youngest daughter, the memories of the past have become a little bit more bearable. My grandfather was a paratrooper, I believe that's the correct term, during the Vietnam War. I've heard stories about him, heard some from him, but the memories with him have become a little bit vague. He's been buried alive, he's been deaf, and heavily injured, just like all the other Vietnam veterans and the veterans of the former Republic of Vietnam. The heroic men and women in service of the country truly deserve our undying gratitude. Events such as today not only commemorate the servicemen and women who fought for our freedom and rights, but also is an opportunity to reconnect all the generations. I recently learned that my mom interacted with Australian soldiers in Vietnam even before she immigrated to Australia. Knowing that the country of my birth came to aid the country where my family came from made me feel proud to be an Australian-born Vietnamese. My nephew is among the audience here today, and I hope that he is able to learn and become aware of the fall of Saigon and the sacrifice of our family and the veterans. I believe my generation and future generations should aim to truly understand our culture, the stories of where we come from, and especially about the land of where we stand on today. The Dual Identity Leadership Program has covered some aspects of the Vietnam history during our retreat sessions. The program's approach creates an immediate sense of trust and intimacy. It allows us to suspend judgment and open up to different points of view without becoming defensive, and it facilitates and deepens our compassion. I believe that storytelling is what has driven this experience. Storytelling has the power to help us connect and learn. I have had the benefit to hear stories from people I've met at all, including veterans and refugees, and from people of my generation. Our words, first-hand experiences, and our shared truth has formed my grasp on the reality of the Vietnam history. Through my participation so far in the program, I have come across the fact that many of our experiences, once shared, loses its isolating potential. When I was listening to a Vietnam veteran share his experience about the war, I remember him saying that he was scared. So this word scared, it allowed me to realize that though they were terrified of what was to come, they were so courageous and continued to fight for what they believed in. Their sacrifice became immeasurable. Thus, on this day, we can give meaning to the sacrifice. My hope is that we can continue to pay respect to them. Emotions represent a kind of unspoken bond that we share. The story behind the emotion is the only difference. All of us, no matter who we are or where we come from, feel something. And as a community, I believe we are capable of acknowledging and accepting that. And that, for me, means that no one is alone. So may we continue to observe this day as an acknowledgement towards the experiences of deep and complex emotions from the tragedy of the Vietnam War. We shall honor our predecessors and their legacy in the pursuit for justice and freedom in order to move forward as a generation that carries on with humility and dignity. Just have a few words in Vietnamese. Ngày này là một giai đoạn lịch sử vẫn chưa được phục hồi hoàn toàn. Các sự kiện xảy ra vào ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 1975 thật đáng đau lòng và rất đáng sợ. Người miền Nam đã thua cuộc chiến và bị bắt buộc rời khỏi quê hương. Vào ngày 30 tháng 4 năm 1975, gia đình của con không thoát khỏi Việt Nam. Ông ngoại thì mất tích và vị trí của hai người cậu thì không rõ. Mẹ đã tìm đường đến bà ngoại và thay vì trốn thoát, mẹ và ngoại quyết định ở lại. Bà ngoại nói rằng bà không thể rời đi mà không có chồng và tất cả các con, và mọi thứ sẽ ổn miễn mẹ và ngoại có nhau. Em nghĩ mẹ và bà ngoại đã quen chờ đợi, trông chờ cha và chồng trở về sau mỗi cuộc chiến. Trong gia đình em, gia đình có nghĩa là chúng ta có thể cùng nhau vượt qua mọi khó khăn. Khi con hỏi mẹ tại sao mẹ không bao giờ nói về ngày hôm đó, thì mẹ nói rằng mẹ không muốn chuyển nỗi đau buồn đó. Nhưng sau khi mẹ đã có thể kể lại trải nghiệm của mình, mẹ cảm thấy nhẹ nhõm vì mẹ có thể chia sẻ câu chuyện của mình với con gái Quốc. Ông ngoại của con là lính nhảy dù và con đã nghe những câu chuyện về ông. Ông đã từng bị trôn sống, bị giết và bị thương nặng như tất cả các lính đã chiến đấu. Những anh hùng nữ kiện phục vụ đất nước thực sự xứng đáng được lòng biết ơn của chúng ta. Các nghi lễ như ngày hôm nay không chỉ tưởng niệm các quân nhân đã chiến đấu vì tự do và quyền lợi của chúng ta, mà còn là cơ hội để kết nối lại tất cả các thế hệ của cộng đồng. Em rất biết ơn khi biết điều này là đất nước của con sinh ra và đã hỗ trợ cho đất nước nơi của gia đình của con. Cháu của con ở đây thì Trân đang ở số khán giả và con muốn cho cháu học hỏi và nhận thức được sự hy sinh của gia đình và quân nhân của đất nước. Con hy vọng thế hệ của con và các thế hệ tương lai sẽ hiểu văn hóa của mình, những câu chuyện về nơi chúng ta đến và vùng đất mà chúng ta đang đứng. Chương trình khóa lãnh đạo hai nguồn gốc đã đóng góp cho sự hiểu biết của con về lịch sử Việt Nam. Con có được cơ hội để nghe những câu chuyện từ những người đã được gặp trong khóa lãnh đạo, và đó bao gồm các chiến sĩ và người bị nạn và những người thuộc thế hệ của con. Những lời nói và những cái trải nghiệm trực tiếp, những sự thật được chia sẻ đã hình thành nên sự hiểu biết của con về thực tế của lịch sử Việt Nam. Thông qua sự tham gia của con trong chương trình lãnh đạo, thì con đã nhận ra rằng khi kinh nghiệm của chúng ta được chia sẻ thì cái kinh nghiệm đó mất đi sự cô lập của nó. Chúng ta nên luôn tưởng nhớ công đức của các bậc tiền nhân, các anh hùng nữ kiệt đã dạy công dựng nước và giữ nước, các chiến sĩ Úc để hy sinh trong các cuộc chiến tranh để giữ gìn sự hòa bình cho nhân loại, và các chiến sĩ đã hy sinh để bảo vệ cho sự tự do của miền Nam Việt Nam. Cảm ơn.
Thanks, Jennifer. Please welcome President of the VCA National, Mr. Bon Nguyen, to share a few words.
Xin kính mời ông Nguyễn Văn Bon, Chủ tịch Cộng đồng Người Việt Quốc gia Liên bang Úc Châu, lên chia sẻ đôi lời về buổi lễ.
This is tall and I'm getting shorter. Can I first acknowledge the traditional owner of the land and pay my respect to both the elders past and present. And I also acknowledge Senator General Rice, who I have met a number of times, not just advocating for the Vietnamese community, but when whichever community as a needed voice for our freedom in their countries. I'm talking about the Chinese community as well as the Tibetan communities. the Honourable Rowan Scott, who has left early because of other commitments, Phim, that's meant to be here with us as well, and most of all, I think, the Vietnam veterans and the Vietnamese veterans. To Ms. Vivian Nguyen, the President of the Vietnamese Community in Australia, to our chapter, to our religious leaders, organisation leaders, as well as representatives from the media and my fellow Vietnamese, Australian Vietnamese, may I add. Ladies and gentlemen, my time's sad now, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what I say or what I can add, will make it better than what's been said. And not only that, but I think the action from the Vietnam veterans and the Vietnamese veterans that actually said it all, their action is actually has said it all. I will use the phrase that I made a speech in camera just a couple of days ago, and that was Vietnam War was not lost at the battlefield, but indeed it was lost at the political table. And I say that is because I say that in great honour and deeply I want to express my appreciation to the Republic of Vietnam and our allies. And that's including the 521 Australian soldiers who make the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam, as well as all the soldiers who make it to home. But I'm sure they and their families have made the sacrifice for the freedom of the South Vietnamese people. So what does it mean for us? Vietnamese Republic of Vietnam was actually completely committed to defend the invasion of communism. At the time, North Vietnam was communism, and it was severely violating the treaty, invading South Vietnam. During that process, the Vietnamese communist regime murders millions of the Vietnamese people, and also our Republic of Vietnam and our allies as well. The people of Vietnam actually pay dearly, and many of our members of our community family was actually murdered during that time as well. I'm taking the examples of Miss Liu Jones. I think her family alone, Miss Liu Jones, are you around here? Her families have been murdered by 12 members of her family was murdered during that time. 12 members, ladies and gentlemen. And also the evidence in front of you. That's about the normal Vietnamese, civilians Vietnamese. What happened to the soldiers? Here, it's the ultimate sacrifice. They symbolize of actually 5 generals who took their life when, on the 30th of April, when Vietnam falls. Not just the general, but there was hundreds of others, soldiers, did the similar thing as well, ladies and gentlemen. So when North Communists invaded South in 1975, they took away our country, but they actually also took away our freedom. May I add that during the Vietnam War, none of the Vietnamese citizens left Vietnam. Did you know that? None. None of our fellow Vietnamese left Vietnam. They want to stay behind, they want to fight, they want to defend our country, they want to build the country together. They believe that the Westerns was actually committed to defend communism at the time as well, so they stay behind. They only left Vietnam. When the communists took over. So what's that saying? That's what's saying. During Vietnam War, it was harsh, it was dangerous, but it's nowhere near the hardship that the Vietnamese people have to live under the communism, ladies and gentlemen. When I was a president, when I was an executive member of the legislature, I met Ba Tam Vien. His name, I only know him by Uncle Vien, and he is actually a major. He's a major, and he was actually a provincial official in Tra Vinh. He went to Nha Trang. After the fall of Saigon, he went to Nha Trang and tried to escape. And this is what he told me. He said to me, Bon, when I escaped, I went to Nha Trang so they don't recognize me. I was arrested by the Vietnamese communist regime. They shot my son in front of me. His son was actually shot right in front of him, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, but the painful thing is actually he has to bribe them to take the body back. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine that? That's just one of many millions of other examples, ladies and gentlemen. So what happened to those who was actually soldiers and South Vietnamese was left behind? I give you one example. Đại tá Hồ Ngọc Cẩn. And Phong, you might help me to translate Đại tá. It's a brigadier. He was in the battlefield. Sorry. A colonel. Yes. He was actually fought right to the last minute. He was meant to report it to one of the generals who already at the time already sacrificed. But he fought. After the war, the Vietnamese communist regime, this is how they took revenge on the soldier. They took him to a football soccer ground in Cần Thơ, shoved nails into his throat, and then shot him. That's how they took revenge on the military personnel, as well as on the Vietnamese people. How did they take on Vietnamese people? Phong can tell you a very good example. Him and his brother was trying to escape from Vietnam. They took the gun. Phong and his brother was hiding underneath the bed. I believe it was underneath the bed. And they took the gun with the whole magazine and they just pulled triggers. Lucky Phong is still alive. That's how they treat our normal Vietnamese people, ladies and gentlemen. So today, the fact that we are here in Australia, we are able to enjoy the freedom that we have here. We got to the freedom land, but along the way, there are many who have paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can be here and sit here, breathing in the air of the freedom air in Australia. So we should remember all of those who actually make the ultimate sacrifice. In saying that, I want to thank you to the Republic of Vietnam and our allies who fought courageously against the invasion of the North Vietnamese communist regime. Ladies and gentlemen, I have only 5 minutes, so therefore I will excuse myself from speaking Vietnamese. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan. And thank you again to everyone for being with us here today. We'll now be having a brief intermission with a short performance from our very own DIL participant Viet Tran and a performance from Go An Đạo.
Sau đây là màn trình diễn của Việt Trần, là một thành viên của khóa lãnh đạo 2 nguồn gốc. Việt sẽ trình diễn bài Nhớ Mẹ do Lê Minh Đảo sáng tác. Sau đó là màn trình diễn của Go An Đạo.